As promised in the last video, which you should definitely go check out after this one if you haven't already, this is a short, more in-depth rules clarification video for Little Red Riding Hood's ability, as it is kind of very complicated, and I didn't want to dedicate a lot of time going over specific examples of how it worked in the bigger strategy video for Little Red, because that video was already going to be too long, and I just felt like I could just make a video like this instead, and it would be fine. Also, the second half of this video will be for some neat little tidbits about the symbol distribution and nerdy things like that, if you're at all interested in that. But without further ado, let's go. To more clearly understand how she works, I'll read her ability card and then the rule book, just so we have a complete understanding of the rules surrounding her character. Her ability says, resolve an effect on a card you play if the symbol next to the effect matches the item in your basket. At the start of the game, place Little Red's basket in your discard pile. Little Red's basket has a wild symbol on it, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit. The rulebook says the top card of Little Red's discard pile is called her basket and contains whichever symbol is in the banner of the top card. The symbols can either be a knife, a pelt, or a wolfsbane. When you play any card with an effect that uses a basket item, the effect only resolves if that item is in her basket. Other effects on the cards resolve as normal. So that means that in the case of What Big Eyes You Have, the first part of the effect will still happen even if you do not resolve the wolfsbane effect later on the card. So let's give an example. In this particular case, I'm playing the card The Wolf Skin, which requires I have a pelt in my basket. Into the Woods is the top card of my discard pile, and it has the pelt symbol in the banner on the left. So the after combat effect on the wolf skin would trigger since the symbols matched. After the combat is resolved, the wolf skin goes into my discard pile as the top card, meaning the new symbol in my basket is now the knife. Let's say instead of playing the wolf skin, I play Once Upon a Time, which requires that I have a knife symbol in my basket. Unfortunately, I have a pelt, so the after combat effect does not trigger because the symbols do not match. So that's it for that example. Let's look at the cards Little Red's basket and What's That in My Basket now, because they both have a wild symbol on them, which counts as any one of the three symbols. So if either of them were in my discard pile, I could trigger the basket effect on any card I play next, because the wild symbol can count as any one of the three other symbols. However, if I play Never Leave the Path, while What's That in My Basket was on top of my discard pile, I would get to pick which singular effect to resolve, as the wild symbol can count as any of the other three symbols, but I would not get to resolve all three effects because you have any one of the three items in Little Red's basket, but not all three with the wild symbol. So that's it for the rules explanation and clarification. I really hope that cleared everything up, especially if you haven't played as Little Red yet. But if you still have any more questions, please leave a comment and I'll do my best to sort out your confusion. So next, the rough pattern of symbols on cards is a knife symbol in the banner and a pelt symbol on the actual card, which triggers a bonus on defense type of effect. This includes card draw, damage, and some healing. The next type of card has a wolfsbane symbol in the banner and has a knife symbol for the effect, and those are typically more aggressive effects like discard effects and damage. And the last type of card has a pelt symbol in the banner and wolfsbane symbol on the effect. And those are typically more support type effects like card cancellation and card draw. Now there are some exceptions to this rule, but this is the general pattern that most cards will fall into one of these three categories. So let's talk about some numbers now. The pelt and knife symbol show up in the banner on 9 cards, while the wolfsbane symbol shows up in the banner of 8 cards. But there are 4 wild symbols, 5 including Little Red's basket, which lets you have access to 14 total pelt and knife symbols and 13 total wolfsbane. As for the symbol effect distribution, there are 7 cards with only pelt or knife effects, and 4 cards with wolfsbane effects, 2 cards with the choice of all 3 symbols, and 10 cards with no symbol required at all. So there are 9 total pelt and knife effects and 6 total wolfbane effects, if you include the 2 Never Leave the Path schemes. The end goal of this was to show that you will always have access to more of the symbols in the banners than the symbol effects on cards, so it's very hard for you to run out of one type of symbol completely, except maybe in the very late game when you've played a lot of cards already. But remember, you can always look at your discard pile and determine roughly how many symbols of each type you have left, and your opponent can do the same too. Now, I considered giving some examples of card chains or patterns you could play, but in the great words of Rodney Smith, I'll leave you to discover that on your own. In conclusion, most of the information I just gave is kind of irrelevant for most players, as this isn't too much of an intensive strategy game, as it is a light miniature skirmish game that we just play for fun. But for the three of you that will actually utilize these numbers to unleash mayhem upon all who dare cross you, I'm very glad I could be of service. So thank you so much for watching this video. Definitely check out the full Little Red strategy guide video, as this was just a much shorter rules clarification. And like, subscribe, and yeet!